vinyl and vision.
Hey folks, thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of Violent Vision. Tonight's very special guest is Jay Ryan, formerly of Six Finger Satellite. Is it fair to say formerly? They're putting out some new music. Is it fair to say new music? Maybe not. I don't know. They're doing reissues for sure. So we talk a little bit about that in the show. It's very exciting for me because I don't have any Six Finger Satellite on vinyl minus this one. And I tell Jay about how I got this from Sub Pop. It's on their website. It was last year at least. So if you're interested in this one, you can go get it from Sub Pop. If not, they'll be putting out other stuff. I'll let Jay explain it. Just listen to the show and he'll tell you all about it. Just, stay tuned and pay attention and take notes. We talk about the band and album Suicide. For those of you who may not know that album or that band, it's fairly challenging. It's fairly challenging music. But what I loved and what I learned discussing this with Jay was that Jay likes challenging music. I'm following him on Bandcamp to kind of see what music he's listening to now currently, some of the stuff that he's purchased within the past year, and I've listened to some of it already, and yeah, it is certainly challenging music. I did find some stuff I really liked. So if you'd like to follow Jay too, you can do that. I don't know, not much else to say. I mean, Jay is a great person. I was very glad to get the opportunity to speak with him. He shares a lot of great stories, kind of like, old road stories of the band back in their heyday, and looking forward to the new stuff coming out for sure. If you would like to stay updated with that, they have a Instagram page now, so you can follow them there. I'll put links in the show notes, so anything that will be pertaining to Six Finger Satellite will be there. And I'll let you know if you subscribe and follow us as well. I will definitely be putting up notices as I find them, as I get them, about the status of those reissues and releases coming up. So without further ado, here's the show. Please do all the things you do with the internet. Like, share, subscribe, and another important one is the rate and review thing. Yeah, people, we need them. It helps, Everyone asks for it. I get it. It's really, really simple. Just scroll down to the bottom, just hit 5 stars. That would be great. Just do that. Enjoy the show. Thank you.
Right on.
You looking good?
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. I mean, what about the idea of making music at this point? Are you interested in doing?
Yeah, I mean, Rick and I have stayed in touch. I mean, we made a record in 2009. It's seems like just yesterday, but it's already 11 years ago.
Good year.
And at the time, I was kind of we spent a year recording and writing, and I was going back and forth.
Mm.
And then we went out and did some touring, and I was just kind of
what a drag.
I'd much rather just make it rather than go tour. And it's the music industry has changed. Shit's changed so much. I'm I don't know. I feel like an old man sometimes.
Yeah.
But, I got some gear behind me, and I kind of mess around, play guitar and doing some recording. We'll have some satellite stuff coming out this year.
Yeah, I saw that. And I've been talking to Rick a little bit. I haven't get him on the phone officially yet. But
yeah.
But yeah, you're reissuing some of the Six Finger.
Yeah, well, Ben Barnett was threatening to put stuff out for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And Rick had worked out something with him, and I think he might have licensed some stuff from Sub Pop, some of our very, very early glory days of Six Finger Satellite, the early days before the Pigeon record.
Oh, before?
So very first demo tape that we ever did, and then some the Weapon EP and a couple other things. So Ben's going to put that out. And then we have something we're working on with this label and this Limited Appeal. Mm-hmm. They're up out of Boston area.
Okay.
And we're going to do a Law of Ruins demos, the demos we did for the record. It's going to be called Ruin Theory, and it's got a bunch of those on it, and it's got a bunch of unreleased stuff. And there's some songs on that record that are like, were like snippets of this live room kind of jam that we did, all improv, one take.
Yeah.
And kind of in our style, when we made records, we would do that kind of stuff, and they show up as little in between song snippets, but there's like a good almost hour's worth of that stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's all gonna come out in its entirety.
Oh, cool.
It's gonna be pretty cool. It's gonna be like a double album.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine.
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty cool.
Nice.
So that's gonna hopefully. We kind of had a full head of steam going on it, and it's getting mastered. And we got guys doing it for us. And the last couple of months have slowed down, so I'm gonna get back on it and try to push it across the finish line here. But hopefully it'll be out sometime. I'm hoping in the spring.
By spring, okay. That was gonna be you know what?
Yeah. Or maybe later. I mean, whenever we get around to it. So
yeah, it's a while for the vinyl anyway. So
yeah, I mean, it's gonna be like a cool it's going to be kind of a cool package, very DIY looking, and I'm sure it'll make all the collectors go crazy, or whoever's crazy enough to still want to buy Six Finger Satellite records.
I do for sure. I got one.
They're out there. You go, man. That's a good one.
Yeah, and actually, I got this from Sub Pop when I talked to Rick last. And, yeah, they still had some in their stock, so I
they did. Those
bastards.
I just bought. I've actually gotten to the point where I'm like going through my collection. I went and put all of my records on Discogs.
Yeah.
Recently, I took an account and I logged all 2,500
your own
albums, CDs, and singles that I have.
Yeah.
And I've gone through and I was like, I need to go find some more of my own albums. So I've been kind of like going and buying them.
Oh, really?
Finding them on Discogs. Actually, I tried to buy one from a guy, and he was like, "Oh, I'm really sorry, the record's not available." And he's like, "Is this Jay Ryan from Six Finger Satellite?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "I stayed at your apartment once."
That's where he got the record.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Nice.
So you go sneaking around buying your own stuff.
Yeah,
but,
Eric was saying he was doing that too.
Yeah.
I guess when you're in the midst of it, you kind of don't necessarily think about the nostalgia of it, and then it only hits.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of them. I have probably I have some for some reason I ended up with 3 dozen copies of Paranormalized.
Oh, cool.
And they're all still sealed.
Oh, nice. That's good.
So I have a ton of those. If you want some for your shop.
I'll buy one for myself because I don't have much. I don't have any Six Finger Satellite on vinyl except this one.
Yeah, so I have for some reason I ended up with 3 dozen of those, and then I probably have 6 or 8 copies of Law of Ruins, and I probably have another 5 or 6 copies of Severe Exposure, and
cool.
I have 1 copy of the record we did with Anchor Brain.
Oh, all right.
I have 1 copy of Machine Cuisine.
Mm-hmm.
Couple copies of Clone Theory. So I'm trying to buy up a couple things. I want at least 2 of each.
Yeah, I actually traded with Eric Paul recently because I actually came across your Live at the ACI 7-inch.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and Eric's a huge fan, and he said that he needed it for his collection, so I traded it for it.
Yeah, I have a couple of those over there somewhere in the stack.
So the folklore is that it is not, in fact, recorded at the ACI.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. It was all ruse.
You did take that photograph on.
Yeah, we went down to we took it down by the prison, and then the little ACI sign is actually we just cut it out and kind of moved it over.
Oh, okay.
The guard hut is real. We got kind of close.
Right.
We recorded it, and then we made our own Happy Prisoners laugh track and ran it through.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you about that, considering you mentioned the reissues that you're going to be doing. Is there going to be some kind of issue, or how do you work that out with Sub Pop when you're doing Law of Ruins?
I don't know. I mean, it's not, it's different. It's completely different. It's completely different versions.
Oh, okay.
So it's not this, so we did 8-track demos.
Right. So it's not
for the record that we just left aside, that we used as kind of reference, and to make sure we had all our parts and all that kind of stuff. And we had never really done demos before. So we recorded the demos, and then we turned around and did like we recorded that on like 2-inch tape. So we had these like 8-track demos sitting around forever.
Yeah.
And they're not as like, it's like the way the songs, I mean, the mixing of that album had a lot of, we just recorded it differently. Like with like the demos, we just got really good sounds, and we set up and we played live, and we just did the songs. So like the vocals are, everything's a little different. It's just a little more band. Mm-hmm. That record's cool. It always kind of bummed me. I always thought it was mixed kind of odd.
Oh yeah.
Oddly, yeah. It's just got a lot of guitar in it. It was probably the most cohesively we ever worked on an album.
Yeah.
And I felt like the final product wasn't super reflective of kind of where we needed to be.
Yeah. Huh. Right.
So just internal band bullshit at the time.
Right.
So
never be completely satisfied with something that you're making on your own, right? I mean,
yeah, well, it was like, and at the time, like we were thinking like, I think we were offered a spot opening for Soundgarden.
Really? On
some tours. And it was like, kind of like, I felt like, it was like our 4th record. We had been a band with James App then for like, it had been like a solid 4 years. It was a very productive time. And I felt like it was kind of the record where we were going to move into like the next phase of what we were doing. We were starting to get into more electronic-y and dance stuff. And I felt like there was a lot of things we could have done, and then it just kind of stopped.
Right.
So some people in the group had other plans.
Yeah. Right.
So
yeah.
Stay living.
I can't imagine what that was like for you guys. I mean, like, especially being in the midst of that 90s boom, doing something that you were kind of on the outskirts of. Like, your style of music wasn't necessarily like grunge music,
Yeah, no, and it's funny because we'll talk about the stuff we'll talk about in relation to this Suicide record today. It's just that part of the kind of what we started out as and kind of what we became. Yeah. We definitely kind of pushed our own, created our own kind of thing.
Right. So I actually did come up with this question prior to the influence of the record, the Suicide record that you chose, was that so signing with Sub Pop, did you feel like you found your tribe or you needed to develop your own?
Signing the Sub Pop was like, so I'll give it some context, right? So late 80s, we're all, we're kind of in college, and we're all like, whatever, 19, 20, 21. And Sub Pop was just like the thing, right? They had these cool bands. There was like Mudhoney and Tad, and I wasn't really a big Nirvana fan. But they had cool packaging, and they had like an aesthetic. Mm-hmm. But so like signing to them was kind of like a big thing. At the time it was very like the indie rock world was very like guitar centric. Mm-hmm. It was very like kind of coming out of like college rock of the 80s, the Jangle and the REM and all that shit. So this all of a sudden was like, oh, distortion, and like, get some hair, and we got some like swagger and all this kind of stuff. So signing a Sub Pop was definitely cool in that respect. We're like, oh yeah, we're like going to be on like the coolest, biggest indie label. Mm. But I think as a band, they signed us on that demo, like The Weapon was like just a demo tape that we had recorded.
Yeah.
We recorded that for Apache. And then they put that out, and then we kind of did a left turn in terms of like the records we were into and listening to. And, John McClane was a big part of that in terms of his guitar playing. Mm-hmm. He definitely embraced that kind of post-punk side of things rather than like at the time, you know, Providence was like Marshalls and Les Pauls and big walls of noise. And we were definitely like that early on. We're just this big wave, kind of like a cross between like Aerosmith and Sonic Youth, you know, playing like in different tunings and that kind of thing. It's just this big, crazy wall of sound. Yeah. And then we just took a left turn and kind of pared it back and started to get a little more angular, and all the records that we loved and all the bands that we loved, we definitely studied sound and stuff. So like at the time, like, so we were on this label that was cool, but wasn't really, they didn't really know what to do with us.
Right. Cause you didn't fit into that box of
so we didn't fit into the box. So initially you're super psyched about Sub Pop, and Sub Pop was still figuring out how to be a label too. You know, they just, I mean, up until Nirvana, they didn't have a ton of money, and they had like some cachet and some street cred and stuff. Mm-hmm. But you know, we were basically signed on Nirvana money, you know, and I mean, they signed a ton of bands at that time. They had this crazy, if you go back and look at the roster of the label at that time, it's super weird. There's like, you know, there's like this Canadian pop, and then you got like Velocity Girl, and you got like Sebado, and then you got like, you know, what's that other band there? Some Northwest pop like Seaweed, and you know, Sunny Day Real Estate. Oh, okay. And you got the Stephen Jesse Bernstein, and you got like Pigeon Head, and then like the Combustible Edison, and it's like, what were they doing? You know, and they had us, you know. So they were just very, very rostered, and they were still signing bands that they liked. I think they still probably do that, to the day. But it was just a weird, I mean, we would go to Seattle and people loved us there, but it was just kind of like, we never really know what to do. I think the label really knew what to do with us. And I don't think we really knew what we were doing either. There was really no internet, or there wasn't any of this, like, we weren't streaming music. There wasn't any of these trappings of modern music now. So you get in a band with your map and you go play.
Yeah, find places to play, right?
You know, if I wanted to like put it back to like this, like the Suicide record, I don't know if we're going to talk about that, but I was thinking about it today, and I think like it's interesting how I was thinking about kind of the lineage and how you discover things.
Right.
I think I discovered Suicide, or at least the idea of that band, through the Cars.
Oh, really?
So there's a song on because Rick Ocasek produced their second record.
Right.
And then they toured with the Cars in the late 70s. I think there's like some kind of midnight special new wave episode where the Cars and Suicide and some other bands are on it.
Yeah.
But there's a song on Candy-O called Shooby-Doo.
Okay.
It's the intro to the song Candy-O.
Okay.
And it's like all this Suicide style synth, and Rick Ocasek doing his like Shooby-Doo, his like Martin Rett, his his Al Vega thing.
Yeah.
And I always love that song. And then then all of a sudden you're like, oh, he's doing the Suicide thing. And then I think a lot of people, maybe like in the late 80s, and it's really only like 10, 11 years removed from the first Suicide record, which in this country, I don't think had a lot of, kind of fell on deaf ears. But so I kind of like discovered the band through other things. And then when I finally really dug into that record, I feel like that record has like meant different things to me over the years.
Right. Like
initially it was like, oh, it's this scary, hard to listen to, like Frankie Teardrop, ooh, kind of thing,
Yeah.
But I think like for me, the songs that I really love, I mean, I love the pulse. That's to me was the initial thing, was the pulse of the album. And then the songs that I really loved and still love are all like Che and like Girl and his like doo-wop, They're doo-wop-y kind of songs.
Yeah.
I think they're like beautiful, they're like that glisten of echo and the pulse and like the dynamic of just soft and loud and things kind of just dropping in and dropping out were the ones that I always loved.
Exactly. Yeah.
But the British punks hated them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they did die. I mean, so the most famous story from that tour, especially opening up for the Clash, was in where is it? Glaston.
Yeah.
Was it?
That guy throws an axe at him or something.
Yeah, it was Scotland of some sort. I can't remember which.
Yeah, Edinburgh. I think he gets an axe thrown at his head.
Right, and just narrowly misses him.
Yeah. You know, we played with them. We played with them in the early 2000s.
Oh yeah, okay.
We played with them in. We did a short tour when it was Sean Greenlee and Rick and Joel and myself, and we did a little jaunt to the Midwest, and we played with them outside of Columbus at this music festival, and we hung out with them after the show, and they were just these normal dudes. Al Vega with his thick New York, you know, thing going on, and just like, you know, everything. He just was like not pretentious, you know. Martin Rev, I think Martin Rev, did I come to our studio once? I don't know if he came to the studio once.
Arlo, you mean?
I feel like he did. So like Simeon from the Silver Apples,
yeah,
he just passed away recently, was
right.
Doing something with like Joe Propitier at one point.
Yes.
In the mid 90s, and Joe brought him to the parlor, and he was like, "Oh, Marty's gonna come by." You know, there's these New York dudes. I don't know if he came by or not. I think he called him, and I think Martin Rev at the time was living in North Providence. So I know, go figure.
Yeah.
So I never met him, but I met him years later, and they were just these regular guys, you know, and
what I hear about them is that there's no crazy like rock and roll stories. There's no crazy drugs, drinking. Like there's no debauchery going on with them. They're just like
no, they were just they were art, and I think they picked up on, they consider themselves artists. They just live the artist life,
Yeah.
And I think that's the interesting thing. I mean, when they were in their when they were getting going and doing their thing, and I mean, they started like, well before the CBGBs,
right.
New York punk thing what happened, and they were much older than most of the people in that scene.
That's right. Yeah.
But I feel like their whole sound and kind of what they were doing, definitely, I find it has way more staying power and is way more interesting than like Blondie or the Talking Heads.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously debatable depending on what kind of music you really find yourself.
That's just my take.
Suicide is clearly your taste. So before we get into this record, because I will start to play a little bit of it. So when was the first time that you heard Suicide? What was that like?
It was probably sometime in the early 80s.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly, but like I said, I discovered it through these two other avenues.
Right.
We read about it in Forced Exposure. I would probably say probably 84.
Yeah, and your initial reaction, I think you already kind of mentioned, it was just kind of like, it's weird, noisy stuff that doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, but it had this simplicity to it. I mean, I think I latched on to like the kind of confrontational nature of it.
Yeah.
I always liked that kind of music.
Hmm.
And it was simple. And not being like a guitar player, I was like, oh, I can play this kind of stuff. It was very liberating.
Yeah.
Because like I said before, there were a lot of rules. There were a lot of rules about you had to do this, and you had to do that, and you're the guitar player. And, it was about having chops and can you sing or can't sing, that kind of stuff. And there was a very like big thing in Providence to be like a songwriter. I'm going to write great songs, and which is nothing wrong with it, but it was kind of, I felt it was kind of limiting. Coming from my perspective, and I felt like a record like Suicide was very liberating.
Yeah.
And it was very like, oh, I have a little drum machine and a Moog. I can make music now. I don't need to know how to do that other stuff.
Right. And I think that this is strange. There's conflicting stories here because supposedly Suicide got their name from the Ghost Rider comic book, which was titled Satan's Suicide.
Yeah, I think there's like they were just, yeah, I think I've heard that they just had a lot of weird names over the years, like
Mm-hmm.
Marty and the Martians or who knows what, it was like kind of the goofy. I think they were all coming out of like the 60s too, like the weird. I don't know what their idea of weird or what their idea of confrontation was, but
yeah, but the contradiction here is that that comic book came out in '72, and they formed in '70.
Yeah, I don't know. I think by the time they actually started gigging, that the comic was probably current.
Right.
I don't think they probably settled on the name Suicide until like 73, 74.
Right. So I mean, like your singing style for Six Finger Satellite, you kind of did a lot of screaming.
Yeah.
You're kind of known for it. It's one of your probably best known characteristics of your singing style.
Yeah, I get some. Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
I think they just got good at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also I think like I definitely owe a nod to Vega in his kind of like his end of line kind of yelps and stuff.
Mm.
I also think I'm realizing too I was kind of influenced by the Mono Man from The Liars. I used to see them a lot.
Okay.
Jeff Connolly, I used to like his singing style, and he did a lot of that like kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it kind of came out of like, I guess, a little bit of boogie woogie and kind of like that 60s psych kind of style, which I think, Vega is definitely in that thing. But I mean, a lot of the singing style, to be honest, for me and Six Finger was like, there were years where we had really bad PAs and I could never hear myself.
Oh, okay.
So it was like
a necessity, I guess.
So I had to like turn up. And it wasn't like turning up the PA. It was like turning up and just singing. Some of the early days, I hear myself and I'm like, God, I sound like a deaf person kind of trying to sing in a rock band, tuneless kind of thing.
That's kind of what it was.
But I think it's, again, for me, it was a lot about the phrasing. And when we came out of the kind of Machine Cuisine into Severe Exposure, I felt like we had kind of arrived at a style. And we were kind of writing our own, we had developed our own language.
Right. So
I think the scream, talk, phrasing kind of thing just evolved naturally. Plus we were like, it was noisy, and I was singing through effects, and I always thought the voice was kind of like an instrument rather than like a narrative piece music. I remember hearing talking to John Poneman and Bruce Pavitt when we first got with Sub Pop, and they made a comment about the uniforms. They're like, when everyone's wearing the same uniform, you look around, everyone's wearing the same uniform. It's time to get a new one. Right. And that always stuck with me. And I was like, grunge is just another uniform, it's like being on the football team, Yeah. So I thought we took a left turn into our own world of like noise and sounds, and just, not to be contrary, but definitely be confrontational and call into question a lot of things, like, why are we doing it this way? Or
right.
What rules? Make your own rules. Do your own thing.
At what time did you think that you came to this conclusion?
I think it was probably like when we decided to make Machine Cuisine. So it's probably like we were moving there, I think, when we recorded The Pigeon is the Most Popular Bird. We were definitely moving there.
Yeah.
But I think like we came out of that, made Machine Cuisine, and then relaunched as Six Finger with Severe Exposure. And it was like we were a different beast.
Well, I really commend that, man. I mean, like, especially now hearing it from you, hearing that story and putting that into that perspective. I mean, it's just like, I love that you guys did that you had that wherewithal to realize that it didn't matter what you were like, looked like, or what label you were on. It was just a matter of finding your own voice and your own like
Yeah.
your own means of creation, right? I mean, it's just like everyone's, inspiration is strange, because you pull little bits from everywhere, from everything that you've kind of been
Yeah.
exposed to, and but that's what you guys came up with as far as like, kind of melding that all together, the band, the group of people that you're playing with, and
Yeah.
not wanting to necessarily be pigeonholed by your label and the representation that they kind of like were associating themselves with in this whole grunge thing.
We played one time and like, we did a tour and we were out wet. We were in Portland and we played with this band Gas Huffer. You ever heard of them?
Yeah, I have.
And we were playing at this big club and they had played before us. And these guys are like all like super fastidious, they have their like bowling shirts and they're all like super like, kind of like the hipster dudes now, all super manicured, and they got everything's folded just right. And they're all like in their little uniforms. Right. And we go to play. And at the time I was wearing I had this red leather outfit. And I had these red leather chaps that had black fringe I bought at a pawn shop in Providence. So we're getting ready to play and these guys are backstage and, I don't know, whatever, they were being kind of dicks, but so I go to put the chaps on, getting ready to go out and play. And one of the guys goes, "Oh yeah, man, you're a dresser, huh? You're a dresser? You get all dressed up?" And I was like, dude, nice boots. Like all these guys were in the same exact uniform in their little things, their little pouffants and stuff.
Yeah, their coif and all that.
And they called me a dresser for putting on a pair of like red leather chaps. And I'm like, I'm just going to go out putting on my chaps and go out and kick somebody in the head.
Right. Oh, that's hilarious.
I think it was like the whole rockabilly. I think it was about taking conventions. And to me, this is the thing about rock music that I've always loved, is like taking the conventions of things, because everybody's, you're part of this big cycle of sounds, right? Taking the conventions and the recognizable stuff and just turning it on its head a little bit. And at the same time, like doing it with conviction and doing it in a way that kind of like befuddles people.
Right. So, speaking about Suicide, they were kind of always, they're very well known as like having been a very confrontational band, and they didn't have, like, they had horrible scenarios at shows where, as we were saying earlier, they almost died because people would throw stuff at them and almost kill them. But extremely confrontational shows that they would have. Like, did you ever have experiences of confrontation like that?
I mean, we definitely, I don't think to that degree. I mean, I think some of it was just, they were kind of like trailblazers in that respect. Like they show up and people would just be like outraged at what they were trying to do. But yeah, I mean, we had our moments, for sure. Especially if you're out on the road and you're touring a lot and it's the only thing you do every day. When you go to a place and people are just whatever, sometimes you just want to put it in their face or get them to remember stuff. Or
can you think of any circumstance where you feel like you were probably at your like worst point as far as like being in a scary situation?
Oh, I kicked people in the head before, and most people, if they deserved it. Like, we were someplace one time, the guy, I was threw the mic out in the crowd and the guy grabbed it and he just yelled a bunch of racist stuff. It was in Florida. And afterwards I said, "Man, come back up for the mic." And he took the mic and smacked him in the head with it, kind of thing. And the whole crowd cheers, kind of thing like that, But, you had your moments, and some of it was just for show, obviously. And sometimes you just kind of went with it. you know, there were definitely nights that were crazy, and the shows were just, you know, you go and we did pretty well, like in New York and in Seattle and Chicago and Austin and San Francisco. So those shows would you get amped up for it, and people were out for a good time. So yeah, you turn into a party band.
Um, Six Finger Satellite had built their own studio to do a lot of their recordings. I think it was what by the time you reached severe exposure was when you finally recorded everything by yourself. Is that right?
Yeah, so we recorded Machine Cuisine with Steve Albini. We were actually at Steve's house recording that record when Kurt Cobain died.
Oh wow, yeah. Rick was telling me about this. I mean,
We were at Steve's house and he got the call that it had happened. And people were calling him like crazy because he had done In Utero. And actually, Bob Weston, who recorded The Pigeon is the Most Popular Bird, after he recorded that record for us, went and assisted Steve on In Utero.
Yeah. Wow.
And brought our record to them, and they all listened to it.
Not impressed.
You know, kind of thing. So we have these weird like crossing paths with that group, even though I don't really know any of them. I met Chris Novoselic once, but yeah, we were with Steve, and then we had gotten a lot of information from him. He actually, I think, had lent us some mics. We took back to Providence, and we just started buying equipment. We took some of our money from our advance from Sub Pop, and instead of paying somebody to record our album, we started buying gear. We had a rehearsal studio. We got a bunch of lumber and shit from Home Depot, and we built a control room and bought a bunch of stuff, and then had a board, and we figured out how to do it. We recorded Severe Exposure, and then we kind of upgraded a little bit for the next one, and then we upgraded again for the third one.
Yeah. So who was kind of like, was there anyone in particular that was more like at the helm, or was everyone?
I think we were all involved in the building of the place. I would say John and Rick were more of like, we're digging into the gear side more. At the time, I was taking over more of the management duties of the group. So I was like more of the money guy and more dealing with the label. And those guys were dealing more with the equipment side. And then we were practicing and writing as well. So, and then we were all building stuff.
Cool. There was one thing that I was thinking about. Now, Suicide is like is a two-piece band. Just, you know, Martin Rev and Alan Vega. And they're, as we kind of discussed, like totally normal, straight-laced type shooting guys type. So it seems to me like Rick Pelletier is probably your longest lasting creative partner. Would you say that that's true?
Yeah.
And so what was that like for you guys, like when you first met? Like how and when did you guys meet?
I mean, Rick started playing with us when he was like probably 18. And Rick had a friend who started playing in the band, this guy, Chris. And Chris was like, came to jam with it. He had met John, and because I got a friend who plays drums, asked him to come along. And we just started playing. I mean, and I think like, you know, Rick was from Tiverton and just out of high school. And I think we were, you know, it's kind of like, I think of him like a brother, you know, like a guy, like a little brother, you know. And, you know, I think for better or for worse, he learned about life from us. And, but he's also just super talented and just like always had a good approach about stuff and super resourceful, and just really like he could just play anything. And, yeah, I mean, I don't know, other than we just got really close and we made good music together, and we developed, I think the band too, just developed, especially in the Severe Exposure lineup when James joined the group. We just had like a musical language, you know, we could jam. I mean, we could play, just somebody would start a riff and we would just play. Yeah. And that, not everybody can do that. You know, not everybody wants to do that.
Yeah, and not
You know, some
every,
people want to be like, there's the song I wrote and you play this and I'll play this. And then we do that. And then we do, and we were just like, fuck that. We're just going to go jam. And we could just play. I mean, it's funny because I've been listening to old rehearsal tapes. I have a ton of them. And I have one tape that we literally play like a riff from a song from Law of Ruins. And we play it for like 90 minutes. It's like all of side A and all of side B, and it cuts off. So we played it longer. We just played, I mean, we probably played the damn riff for like 2 hours,
wow, that's crazy.
figuring out little things we were going to do,
Yeah.
but over and over and over and over and over again. Kind of like Suicide might be like this one pounding one thing into oblivion until you find a dynamic within it, or a stop or a start, or like a little flourish or something. But it's that whole idea of repetition, you know, and you find somebody like Rick who, you know, you have something in common with musically and you build a language with. I think it's great. And that's kind of like, you know, we still have it today, even though we haven't played in a while together. We still speak the same language.
Yeah, I mean, I don't suppose that goes away if you really develop that brotherly bond, you know?
No, no. Plus, you know, we just shared a lot of like, you know, long van rides and shitty hotel rooms and hauling gear and whatever.
Traveling with people alone, it, like usually develops like you kind of like solidify a relationship in that way. And I mean, you guys have obviously driven this country back and forth numerous times,
Yeah.
overseas as well. So yeah,
It was just, we're friends. I mean, I think of all of the band itself, it's like Rick and I have stayed friends. I think one of the regrets I have about the group is that we weren't friendlier. The band always had this kind of a little bit of like, you know, there was a little bit of like trying to outdo each other, and there was a little bit of pecking order kind of thing going on. I think it created some good tension, created for some good rock and some good stuff. But, you know, I wish we were able to do more, and, you know, there was a little more longevity. I feel like it just ended too soon. But at the same time, you know,
it is what it is, and you have this.
yeah, that's the way it goes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have a.
Maybe the nostalgia. I'm getting a little too nostalgic for my own good. Maybe it's like,
I'm
fuck it. It should just be done.
Well, you know, I was telling Rick this when I spoke with him too, is that like, I mean, you've got this body of work. I mean, like that's pretty impressive. You know, it's like no matter what, no one can ever take that from you. Like that, like you guys made this, and whatever happens with it, whatever kind of longevity it might go on to procure, it is what it is. I mean, and it's good work. It's good, solid work.
Yeah, it's aged pretty well. I've gone back and listened to the catalog recently, and I'm like, shit stands up, man.
For sure, absolutely. That's a refreshing take on it that I haven't heard, which makes sense, complete sense. It's kind of like, have you listened to the Hammer Party record yet?
I've heard some of it, yes.
Because that's kind of what sparked me. It's like that same sentimentality that I had with that song "Waiting for the Bus," was how like Dan sings that little refrain where it's just like always in a rush, always in a rush, always in a rush. And that shit goes right through my brain, and I'm just like, this is my life. This is what's happening to me. I always feel like I'm in a rush, like constantly, just like chasing my fucking tail all day long. You know?
No.
Right. So, have you fulfilled your life's dream currently? Like, do you think that you've done the best that you could up until now?
I mean, I don't know. I don't even know. I mean, as a musician making music, I never knew. I think I was always in the moment, and I never really thought about legacy or really thought about that kind of stuff. And I think when I've just tried to be a really good father and a really good person, you know. So I don't know. I mean, I think I definitely have a different take on my whole musical career. There's some things I really love, and there's some things I kind of have regrets about, but I think I've just tried to be more so, rather than a creative person, try to be more of just a good, grounded human. So I don't know if I answered your question. I don't know if I've lived my if I've lived to my fullest.
Well, no,
I guess.
I think that you have because, basically what you're saying is that, you just want to make sure that you're being a good person more so than
Yeah.
anything else. So,
Yeah. And plus, as I've gotten older, I'm less motivated by things, I think, as when I was younger. But also, like, musically, it's like, I think about making new music, and I just like, I've got some gear and I've recorded a little bit of stuff, but I find more pleasure and I'm more gratified just sitting and playing and not even recording it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I don't want to record it. It's like, then it's like a chore. I'd rather just sit here and play guitar.
Right.
And then it's gone. And then I'm like, okay, maybe I'll capture it someday. But I just look at the piles of stuff out there. It's like the amount of gear and the amount of stuff and the amount of like effects and equipment and the millions and millions and millions of people making piles and piles and piles of stuff. And I'm kind of like, yeah, I guess I could join the fray, but I'm not doing it. I'm doing it more for me than, I think when we were, when the band was going, we were like, yeah, we're a rock band and we make records and we go on tour and we do this and we're making money. And we were doing it without the internet and without cell phones and without all this stuff. And now it's just kind of like, I don't know. I don't want to say what's the point, but part of me is like
it was such a more romantic thing back then, like
it seemed like it. And maybe that's just youth. Maybe just youth makes it so. I'm sure there are people.
Well, I think the internet
younger
ruined
people.
it. Like because everything is so indispensable, or indisposable now, and like you're saying, the piles are building. Everyone's just making their own stuff, and it's like so accessible that it becomes hard to kind of stand out from those piles.
Or makes it hard to discern if even the piles you're making is any good.
Well, and even as a consumer, it's just like, well, do I really want to go through all of this? It's just like, there's just so much stuff.
It's content, it's just like you're making content versus like are you contributing to the mystery?
Right. Yeah. So I feel that same pain and that same struggle. I mean, like even today, I'm just like, why the fuck are we doing this? I don't know. It's like, what the fuck drives us these days,
Yeah, I know. It's just good to talk, though. I mean,
no,
I miss talking. I miss talking about art. I miss talking about music. So I'm glad we're talking.
It's better than talking politics, isn't it?
Oh, fuck yeah.
Well, we do have to get a little political. We're gonna listen to Che now. When did you get into playing the Moog and the synthesizers?
Around that time. I mean, we had a little bit going on, and the Pigeon is the most popular bird. There's a lot of like in between song stuff where there's some jamming going on some synths and organ and stuff. And then when we made Machine Cuisine and Severe Exposure, I got we just bought a bunch of stuff, and I just was like, okay, I guess I'll play that.
Yeah. So you were never really
we went from 2 guitars to 1 guitar. And John was kind of doing double duty on keys and guitar. And then I just wanted to play some lead stuff. So it was very simple. Yeah. I never really wanted to be burdened with an instrument.
So you were never really a trained musician type? You never actually like took lessons for the keys? And
no.
Did you, no like lessons for any instruments at all? Oh. So you are in fact the front man.
I remember there were times when I said to the group, I was like, I'll just go out there and do my thing, and you guys don't worry about it. Just like, I'll just play, just play really aggressively and be really dig into, don't worry about the crowd. I'll take care of them.
Nice. Sorry. So that was it. That was the end of the record. We made it through.
We made it through, man. It's a good one.
Yeah.
There's a lot of records like that in our, records along the way, but for me personally, like this one, definitely, like, I found it to be empowering because to me it was like, you can go and do this.
Right.
There were definitely times where I was like, I don't know, I'm not a guitar player, I'm not a bass player, I'm just the singer. And there was a little bit of that early on, and then I remember like getting criticism because like I couldn't sing like whoever, you know. And then I was like, and then the band changed and we had this kind of rebirth, and this record was definitely one that was, you know, it was empowering. It was like, go do it, go make some sounds, go fuck stuff up, go make a statement, go try something. There are no rules, just do what you want to do.
Right.
And to me, that is like, you know, that's the most like punk thing you can do.
Right.
You know, it's not about a uniform, or it's not about a predetermined set of rules and stuff. You just go and make the music you want to make.
Cool.
Style wise, attitude wise, all of it.
I like the
It checks all the boxes.
I liked hearing what you were saying about that, about, you know, making your own path, kind of like, you know, following the beat of your own drum. I think that would apply to anybody listening today, to anyone that's interested in creating music, anyone interested in like trying to pursue a musical career, musical path of some sort.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't know what that looks like these days.
Well, I mean, I'm just hoping that that's what people are thinking. That's how they are approaching.
Oh yeah. I think, you know, a lot of like, you know, the outsider kind of music, the outsider person doing stuff for the reason of, because they have to, because it's scratching an itch, you know?
Right.
Versus trying to, like, you know, stream. I mean, I don't even know what the right language is for it these days. It's like, I'm trying to maximize my streaming. I don't even know what it is, you know?
Oh yeah.
I just like the freaky weird shit, man. Cool. Well, if you need anything else, I don't know if you're gonna, however you promote it, you want to grab just a screenshot of my face off this thing.
Do you have like a
pick a nice one?
Do you have like a headshot of some sort, like some? No, nothing like that. I found some old stuff off the internet.
Whatever you want to do, just make me look good.
I'll probably have to use some old photos.
Touche, brother. Although you did say I looked okay.
You do look okay. I mean, look at me. I'm a fucking mess too. I mean, whatever. We're all falling apart. Not a big deal.
You know, it'll be all right. Yeah, whatever you want to do.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you for talking with me. I appreciate it.
See you, man.